All right, we're live. Welcome to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. Today is going to be an especially spicy video. But as normal, we don't get started right away. We'll do some chatting. And just for all the people who are going to instantly click on and be too impatient to wait, I'm going to say right now, we're going to start. Thank you, Ryan D, for the sub. We're going to start the chat at the 25-minute mark of this stream. So, at exactly the 25-minute mark, give or take a few seconds, we're going to start at that point. Let other people jump in, because I have a feeling a lot of people have a lot to say on the subject of today's stream, I guess. So, I'm making this declaration now. Usually we just kind of do it whenever. But I just know
whenever we feel like it.
I know people are just not going to want to sit through and wait, and they just want the answer. So, 25 minutes. So, what's been up with you, Alex?
You understand what's been happening behind the scenes. I still imagine I sound horrendous right now, because
terrible.
It's just lingering everything I have. I've been sick for the past 3 weeks with 2 separate illnesses, and just other than that, real life stuff gets in the way. So I've been working through it, dealing with a lot of extra things going on, making sure everything else is kind of squared away and taken care of, and bedridden and dying. So right now I can actually talk without coughing up a lung that is incredibly painful to my chest and like throat. So I can speak now, which means I can make content, so I'm back to the grind. But I forgot what it feels like to be healthy. I just want to feel normal.
I forgot what it feels to be healthy. You need to make Plague Marine content right now while you're sick.
That's so true. I am in my next video that's gonna come out Monday. I do talk about a good number of plague planets, so that's something.
Make Mortarion proud.
Yeah, but it's like, oh my god, it's so annoying. Maybe soon I'll feel better, and then to tax my mental health, I start playing Dead by Daylight again. So no part of me is safe. Everything ails. Everything is struggling. My life. And also, actually, you know what? More and more I play Dead by Daylight, I'm just like, I want them to do a 40k crossover so fucking bad. It'd be so cool.
Yeah.
All I want. I want a Night Lord killer. That'd be such a fun killer to revolve around like fear and like scaring survivors. It'd be a really interesting stealth killer. They haven't done that for a while. And then, like, you could get so many cool cosmetics, like Oni, make him a world eater. It'd be very cool. Make what's Dwight commissar? Easy. So yeah, my life has just been struggling and then playing Dead by Daylight and struggling harder.
Trying to match yourself spiritually and physically.
Exactly. Like that one day where I lost every single game I played, where you saw the tail end of it. I will say, hasn't repeated. I've been gaming very well. And so I had that day, it was fucking rough. And then I just sat down and was like, I'm going to get better. And I have been getting better. The main reason, I'm not playing nice anymore. I play too nice. And I'm too friendly. Devin would be so upset with what I've been doing.
I'm sure. Oh yeah, and I just realized with that recent sub, we're now at 3,369.
Hey.
Nice.
I do mean this fully unironically. The only good trailer from the Warhammer Skulls event was the Power Wash Simulator DLC. That was the only good piece of content we received from that day. I'm so excited. I want to clean like a Lehman Russ or a Baneblade.
A Baneblade would be pretty fun.
I'd imagine they're gonna have us clean a Baneblade because it's stupidly large tank. I also fully expect we're gonna have to clean a knight.
A knight would be probably the one they would do.
Yeah, because if
Honestly.
it's anything like the Final Fantasy VII DLC, they made it was like I think it's one of the later bosses in the remake part 1, one of the giant robots. You do get to clean that. And it has a bunch of moving parts, so you have to move the arms around and like the guns make them swivel or something.
That's fun.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, and then you get to clean off the truck and the motorcycle that Cloud will later steal from Shinra, because you're working for Shinra in that DLC.
Yeah.
It's like as they're all talking and like talking about things, and you're like, oh, the events of Final Fantasy VII are like about to happen.
Oh. Okay, yeah, I think I know.
Yeah, because while you're cleaning the mech, I think the Hojo, one of them, the fat guy who like runs the military arm of Shinra. Heidegger. He's talking about how he's so excited because once you clean this mech, he's gonna send it after some people that fell in the sewers.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what mech you're talking about now.
Yeah, you're just like kind of
just played that part in the game. Like
yeah, you're like you're just it starts like at the beginning, like before some of the events, and then to like during where stuff's happening in the background, and you're just like cleaning things. It's really fun. It's a good DLC.
That's fun. Yeah, I've been playing the remake recently. It's such a good game.
I'm gonna try it.
Blown away by how remake didn't get even more notice. It's just good RPG stuff. It's good RPG stuff with a good hybrid action combat / like turn-based kind of mechanic.
Yeah, because it's like real-time action, and then you have like a skill deck, right? Isn't that how it works?
Kind of. So you have an action bar. You have an action bar, and it fills up the more stuff you do in combat and very slowly over time. And then when it hits certain parts, you can use those segments to use skills, abilities, spells, or what have you. And then you pause the game, select the skill in the normal Final Fantasy VII style, and then your character immediately goes and does that. So.
Oh, interesting. I feel like I'd enjoy it. I just have to actually get it because I got it for free on my PlayStation 4, which I haven't used for years. So it's like it's just kind of stuck on a different console.
Consoles are dead to me. I don't. Yeah. I literally own the remake. The PlayStation's literally in the room I'm sitting in right now, and I'm like, I can't be fucked to go and set it up and do this weird janky setup. I'll just get done on Steam.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did. So.
It's like my PlayStation is literally just a DVD player at this point. That's all it is ever used for.
It's ridiculous number of games I've purchased just so I could play it on PC rather than on the console.
It's so much nicer on PC because
to be fair, I haven't bought a console game in forever since. Well, not counting the Switch.
Switch, yeah, Switch you have to. You have to. Which I'll say, I want to switch out at some point. I desperately want a Steam Deck. Only because I have a lot of roguelites that are just more fun to play laying down than sitting at my desk. I would play a lot more like Enter the Gungeon or Slay the Spire if I just didn't have to sit down at my desk to play it.
I don't have that problem, but I do also need to travel somewhat frequently, so it would be nice.
So. Yeah, and other than that, like the Steam Deck, if you are like me, an avid modder, the Steam Deck is just a little computer, like literally to the point where you can boot it to Windows. So, like you can just kind of go a little crazy and do stuff, even make it a better portable emulator. Like you can run GameCube shit pretty solidly on the Steam Deck.
But yeah, so I don't know. I've also I'm eating good. Gaming is so good right now. I mean,
it's like very good.
Like even getting back into games, I've been playing Monster Hunter World again. It's been tons of fun. Been playing Final Fantasy VII. Tons of fun. I'm currently addicted to this game, Doors of Trithis. That I got for my birthday, which is a super cheap. Well, not super cheap. A pretty cheap like game you can get on Steam. It's just like a classic roguelite style game. It technically has saves, but it plays better if you just treat it like a roguelike. You die, you're dead, restart. Because a lot of the game, there's like not a ton to do, but there's lots of ways you can progress your character. Like currently, I have a character who's just wearing full chainmail and is using a staff. And my big strategy is hitting creatures, stunning them, and then running away until I can use my skill again.
I mean, but it works.
I mean, it works works outrageously well, actually. It's all really strong enemies you can beat that way, as long as you actually get the stun chance. There's also a build where it's like first strike chivalry build, where you go swords and you go chivalry, and your first hit does like 80% of the enemy's health.
Jesus.
Because you get a bunch of bonuses when an enemy's at max health.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
But after that, you do nothing extra. You just do your general weapon hit damage. So it's a fun build, especially when you get strong enough where you just start one-shotting a lot of the weaker enemies. And your starts are random and it's all procedurally generated as well. So stuff you can get, your run could be very, very different every time.
I think I wish listed it after you told me about it, and I looked at the Steam page because it looked really interesting, especially because besides just AAA stuff, it's been a pretty fucking nice year for indie games too. Oh, like the fact that yeah, oh my god, yeah, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 dropped on Steam recently as well. I did not. I'm gonna have to add that. But a game called El Paso Elsewhere dropped, and it's like a spiritual successor to the Max Payne series that looks really fun.
Yeah, and I'm getting Lords of the Fallen drops in like a week.
Oh yeah, y'all gonna have to tell me about that, because I'm only holding off because of my bad experience with the first one.
That's what a lot of people said. This one feels more like a legitimate Souls-like, in like AAA Souls-like.
That's what I'm hoping. It seems like they're doing a good job at least.
I'm anticipating it's just gonna feel like it's copying Dark Souls' homework, which is fine. You know, they have some interesting mechanics. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get an A, right?
Yeah,
might as well. Plus, it's been a while since like an actual Dark Souls game has come out, so I'm feeling pretty fresh in the genre.
Yeah, as we're waiting for Elden Ring DLC.
Yeah,
which is being worked on apparently. Apparently, like they're making good progress.
Yeah, FromSoft doesn't rush anything.
They really don't, and they don't tell us either.
Yeah. God. The Monster Hunter community is going feral right now, just waiting for an announcement from Monster Hunter 6. And there's been weird leaks going on lately that it's going to be like an MMO or something, and I don't know. So, yeah, this has been a very interesting time, and actually, an interesting topic that kind of leads into what the main subject of today's chat is there's been this big thing blowing up on Twitter recently about WotC dropping one of their publishers. So,
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, there's been this big thing on Twitter where they're just like, they just dropped one of their publishers, and now you're never gonna see physical copies of D&D in stores again. And there's been some D&D channels talking about it. It's one, this isn't news. This was announced early September. It was also one of six publishers they have.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Like, I hear, oh yeah, they dropped one of their publishers. The news to me is, okay. I assume they have more or in-house. Like, that doesn't, I would not make the assumption there's no more physical D&D books because that doesn't make fucking sense.
No, people are blowing it up. It was a pretty big publisher. Is like one of their most like widespread. It's called Penguin Random House.
Yeah, Penguin. The Penguin's a really massive one.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of, especially classic book stuff. If you buy any book that is like a couple decades old, there's a solid chance it's published by Penguin.
Yeah. True. But people are blowing it up to be like way bigger than it is when it's just not going to be the case. And D&D books
most likely
actually sell pretty well.
Yeah, and most likely it's because they found a different publisher that can do the same work for cheaper. Because Penguin is a giant fucking name, so you also are paying for the name. Like, that... Damn, I'm happy I missed that, because that'd be... I would have had to chirp back of how stupid of a point that is. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a... I don't know. It prompted the making of today's video, which is doing pretty well. Probably not for great reasons, but it's doing pretty well. Legitimately, I'm surprised we haven't had anyone hop into chat just to shout, "WotC's bad," and then run away. So
yeah, and we get that all the time for
we do get that all the time.
Subjects that like aren't even controversial. Like, how do you feel about like VTTs? They're good, and they leave.
Yeah,
it's like we also think they're good.
Roll20's bad, leaves. That doesn't explain.
Yeah, it's Foundry's better, but Roll20's easier. Stay around, please.
Well, it's not even like I think Foundry is better in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of ways it's not. Like,
it depends on what you value and like good. For me, it's like, what is the most fun VTT we've used? Foundry 100%. Roll20 though is the easiest to use for just people to like, hey, let's play a tabletop game, let's do a one shot. Okay, just quickly make a Roll20 page. It's depending on what your, I guess, definition of a good VTT is.
Well,
mine
especially
is fun.
Well, I was gonna say, one of the things I do is just ease of use. Like, how quickly can I get a game set up? And Foundry takes a little bit more time, but usually it's worth it. But I've been finding out recently, for Vampire, they don't have... they don't have the license stuff for Vampire.
Oh.
So, abilities are gonna have to be copy-pasted onto your character sheets.
Damn. Because we are using Foundry for this one.
Yes. Or at least that's the intent.
That is a shame. Are there any other cool things that at least modders have put in for Vampire?
No, nothing.
Oh.
So...
That hurts to hear. That hurts my heart.
Yeah. It's like... It let me literally... Because, like, VTT is not a very... Or VTT. VTM is not a very, like, rule-heavy game. So...
No. Yeah. There's not much reason to. And yeah, that is right, Dead Phoenix. That's the making of a true fan. Drop the opinion and then stay.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do that. But I did say 25 minutes, sparing some seconds. Let's talk about today's topic.
Yeah.
So, TTRPGs need WotC. We kind of already touched on this. V20 is still my... What's V20?
What is V? I've never heard of that.
Still my jam. But, so, today, we talked about it. I made a video on it. Let's talk about why TTRPGs, as we currently know them, need WotC to exist. You know? And I'm going to disclaim right now, as I did in the beginning of my video, I don't want WotC to succeed any more than anyone else does. I don't condone corporate greed. I don't condone anything they've done with the D&D system at all. And especially not what they're trying to do with 1D&D / new D&D 5e. / whatever
It's-
they're calling it now.
It's really fun, the system where they're taking out the remnants of what I enjoyed of 5e and taking it out. It's like, oh, yeah, it's for balance. It's like, okay, now the game's less fun.
Make everything stronger. No, that would be harder. It's like,
yeah, just boost
then do
everything.
the work. What are we paying you for?
They just make adventure books. That's all the D&D does.
WotC's bad and runs away. Rylan, no. WotC is bad, but we need WotC, and we need Hasbro, because I've been doing tabletop for a long time now. Very, very long time. Well before it was cool. Well before you could get TTRPG books, even like online that easily. Like, I was there when RPG Drive-Thru started. You know. And RPG Drive-Thru was like a godsend. So many people absolutely flew to the site once it came up. Because a lot of books you just couldn't get most places. You know, I own most Deadland books just through RPG Drive-Thru. Because you can't find Deadlands books anywhere.
That makes sense, yeah, because at most you can upcharge a lot for a specific made-to-order publish from like a printing house or a secondhand copy that may or may not be like fucked up. It's like getting the Anima books. They're stupidly expensive to track down.
And see, Mega Reacts here, you are not understanding the whole conversation already. So let me spell it out for you. Right? The way TTRPGs are made, run, whatever, at this point, it's insane to me how anyone can defend D&D 5th edition's just overall design with how flawed it is. In, like, every way. Right? In the video, I said that D&D 5e is one of the easiest games to get into, which I agree even now. I mean, it would be weird if I changed my opinion already. But it's only good to get you started. Once you figure out how D&D 5e runs, you learn just how bad it is. Like, how it doesn't work even as intended most of the time.
Yeah, you need to make it work, or you need to like make it more interesting, because just the more you play it, the more you learn, the more you're like, oh, shit's kind of samey, or it's just like, wait, there's no rules for this, and I have a player who specifically wants to make a character built around this, where the rules are so vague, I guess I gotta write them myself.
Yeah, a player wants to make a concept we put in the game that we did not flesh out. I mean, that's just Anima Beyond Fantasy all over again. I want to make traps. Okay, we'll make something work. How it always is. Yeah, it baffles me to no ends. Just the terrible design philosophy, and just how tone deaf WotC is to the community as a whole. I mean, they literally invited a bunch of content creators to come and chat, and then they just tried to sell them on content there. And all the content creators like, no, let's talk about all the shit you've been doing. To Wizards' credit, they did actually stop the pitch and talk about accountability. See, but again, no one's addressing the actual problem when it comes to this, right? So it's not about what they're doing for gaming companies, right? It's about money. It's about how much they put tabletop in front of people's faces. There's a lot of old hats in the scene who are just like, if D&D went away right now, I'd be fine, because tabletop will be the same as it always has. But that's the problem. It can't stay that way. It was so unheard of and niche before, and so many people didn't know about it. That's not good. if it stays the same, like, people don't understand, like, industries thrive when you have public interest. It's mandatory, 100%. Inarguably, it's 100%. Like, if D&D, Hasbro, WotC completely jumped out of the game right now, 90% of tabletop content would just disappear from the public eye. The only remaining 10% is Pathfinder, because Pathfinder has come out with some pretty kick-ass games as of late, not including the Bickham games.
Yeah. Because, like, for a lot of things, especially newer stuff, to get their start or even get attention, a lot of times it is banking off of larger existing things, and then you hit your like consumer base from people who are dissatisfied with the big thing. Since right now Wizard of the Coast is in the really nice situation where they kind of just have to coast, and the money is already made, their name is already like selling itself because it's D&D, and they can keep doing what they're currently doing of just making adventure books, which I feel are way cheaper and easier to make than a full-on new rule book with a lot of rules fixes that they need. Only reason I think that too, also because printing books in general is just expensive and they lose money on doing it in the first place. Because you buy a book once, you never need to pay them again.
Yeah, well, and also, you need to sell a lot of product to make back, to break even when it comes to publishing. A lot of time, it's the reason why the tabletop industry essentially, like, was I guess dark times, dark ages was a good way to put it. You know, barely anyone knew because you just couldn't produce a lot of books. It was expensive. Most companies sometimes just went into the red because of it and just don't exist anymore. What did WotC do to promote TTRPGs before D&D movie and Baldur's Gate Stranger Things? Is it just the name brand of D&D? Yes.
Yeah, literally just that.
Yes. What are you talking about?
It's all word of mouth for a lot of like D&D things to get good. Because specifically, this is something I very much noted as someone in nerdier spheres who's associated with film stuff. You can real time track the use of D&D as a plot device or as a character trait and what it means. Because before like Stranger Things, I'd say there's like a year or so buffer as it was starting to kind of slow down. But specifically, if a character is noted to play D&D, the immediate implication to the audience is that they are a reclusive nerd who still lives with their parents, and they're inherently like childish. That is the immediate like characterization that is done with that statement.
Yep.
And over time, it is disappearing. It's something I noticed a lot too in some of the shows like my sister watched when I was, living with my whole family. Is that brought up, and then it's immediately like, oh, we can trust this guy. We need a hacker. Oh, he plays D&D. Perfect. He's the one. And you're like, what? Oh, okay. So that's the implication they're making. And then you keep seeing that repeat. And then over time, the name becomes more and more associated with cooler things. And now it's, more acceptable socially to be into it. Same deal with like video games. Video games also had a very similar, like really easy brushstroke to, if you play video games, you're as a character trait, you're essentially a man-child. And that's also lessened as more and more people do. And as it lessens in actual like shows and movies as well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other stuff, but it's just like advertising, right? Your average everyday person does not understand the power of advertising. How much pull advertising does, right? How do you think companies can afford to spend tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising all the time, right? It's because that brings money. It's just plain and simple.
As annoyed as we are about mobile games, the ads work. And most mobile game revenue is spent on ad campaigns.
Yeah. And it takes like right? It takes a lot of money to produce even small knickknacks, like even like stuff you find at like a Spencer's or a Barnes and Noble, you know, paraphernalia of D&D. That takes production costs, which needs lots and lots of money. And that only gets done when there's a level of brand recognition, which has been building. We can count on, yeah. It will be just as effective as demon summoning as well, I'll tell you. It's... I've already prefaced all this with, it's not like I want Wizards of the Coast to excel or anything. In fact, I think they're already doing actually everything they can for the tabletop community, whether they want to or not. The consistent bad ideas they have is enough to dissuade people from playing more D&D, but not enough to dissuade people from trying D&D.
It's a beautiful system that they have where their weird business decisions are some fantastic marketing for their competitors.
It is.
It's the same thing with Unity, and then some companies made a really good decision until Epic Games completely fucked themselves over and are now like kind of also being weird and scummy. So it's like, you kind of just wasted this perfect marketing situation, which they did for a little bit, because when the whole Unity debacle was going down, they were hosting free like lessons and content for learning their program, and then they're trying to become like a weird all content hub, not just like games and game design. But yeah, and then fired a large chunk of their company. But yeah, it's like it's more of like Wizards of the Coast's bad publicity is everyone else's good publicity.
Yeah, because I don't think they're already panicking. They've been panicking, and they wouldn't be panicking if they were doing well, you know.
It's also like honestly a big thing I'm noticing, and I've been waiting for this to blow over. Is I wouldn't be surprised if most companies like this are currently in the same boat. Besides just like making weird monetary decisions, I have a feeling a lot of it is brought on by lower profits due to the COVID boom, because everyone got into more like nerdy hobby stuff while they were stuck inside. And so a lot of people more got into D&D, maybe bought some books to play online with their friends, or run a game for people while that like live in the same house, like stuff like that. And then profits stop growing because everyone's going back to their day-to-day lives and they don't have time anymore. So now that the profits are way lower, they expanded too much during COVID. And so they're like, they need to get as much money back as they can. Because a lot of companies seem to be doing this around the same time. And a lot of those companies that are all making these weird mistakes are all ones that got way, way bigger and way, way more revenue during COVID.
Yeah. That's a very, I think, poignant series of notes to make. Is there's a lot of different factors that could be the cause why. It could also just be this recent trend of people don't realize that like entrepreneurs tend to be in these clubs that are super self-insulated, where they talk about like these money-making schemes that are just completely infeasible. And then they take that to the real world, and then they're shocked when things crash suddenly. It's because they think they know people, and they talk to other people who think they know people. And then it falls apart, and they're like, oh no, who would have guessed? Our brilliant idea didn't work. This happens all the time. And it's because
all the time.
These individuals don't actually listen to other people because they feel like they understand people's needs better than they do. You'll hear people say that too. It's just like, you have to know what the public wants better than they do.
Yeah, like the latest Twitter update that removed headlines from any links you share.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's just a picture instead of any text there. So you can kind of just have a article link with any headline you want it to be.
Yeah.
And anybody that like the one prominent guy who's like, hey guys, this is kind of a dumb idea. Elon's like, wow, the media's fooling you. Like he cannot process the idea that maybe he just doesn't fucking know what's doing or what people want.
Yeah.
That no, you're just fooled into thinking I'm wrong. It's
Now, don't
probably
get
a
me
lot
wrong.
of opinions.
There's
like,
also
in those executives.
Sorry.
It's probably just a common opinion of like a lot of it people being like, what? They're being tricked into thinking this idea was wrong. No, 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 of course not, boss. You had a great idea, person who holds my livelihood in his hands that I need to make sure is happy.
And I've lost my point.
No.
No, it's okay. It's fine. I was interrupting. Well, so I was going to say, don't get me wrong. There are also just a lot of idiots out there.
There are.
Who will just buy stuff up. Self-help stuff. Scams work. Scams exist because scams work, right? Because there's a sucker born every minute, as they say. But the thing is that on a whole, it doesn't work. It doesn't work when you look at actual industry business. It elevates from scam to more like monopolies or oligopolies, you know, where you get like whole industries working together to raise profits and stuff like that. Stuff that's no longer just scamming people and more just corporate greed, you know, squeezing every penny out of us. Like now, us paying full book price for PDFs when they have no production costs whatsoever because people will buy it. And to be fair, I've done the same. So, you know, what can you do? The huge pirate culture. Well, see, that's the thing, right? Like, pirating tabletop games actually decreased super heavily during all of this D&D stuff. Because, trust me, I've sailed a few seas myself. I've been there. I always tend to buy books as much as often as I can. But, you know, sometimes you don't know. And there's a lot of TTRPGs that just don't have good video content on them. So it's like, well, I either got to guess and gamble with my money or get a free preview.
Honestly, I think there's just a culture around it. Because I feel like there might be a lot of people who feel the same way I do for tabletop games. If it's one you've never heard of and like you're just like, I just want to page through it, see if it's a thing I'm even interested in, you will pirate it, read through the PDF, see if it's something you're even interested in, and then later it's like, oh, I'm going to actually play this. Then you buy it. Especially if it's a small production company. Like, it's the same deal with I guess there's a pretty solid community about this for pirating video games. There's a lot of people, including myself, who are like, AAA shit? Yeah, whatever. If it's an indie studio, you're an asshole if you pirate that.
Yeah.
Because, like, there are people who your money actually makes a tangible difference. Like, if someone pirates, say, like, the fucking Jedi Survivor game, they're making that money back. They're okay. They're fine. Your $60 isn't going to, like, make or break the game. For, like, a small indie studio that's just releasing their game on Steam, your, like, $20 might legitimately help fund more of their projects. There's a different air there.
Well, and something that I think is also just been, it's always been a thing, right? But it's been especially more established, is kind of nerd cred. There's a reason why most big TTRPG channels in general always have a background of like their living room with just books all over.
That's very true.
Hobby gaming has always been a materialistic thing, and people always want to get more stuff. The dice stuff that Dead Phoenix has kind of mentioned here is
I also
a big
say,
part of
as
that.
I am literally in a giant hobby like game, 40K is directly a collecting like game, and I can't showcase my models behind me because I have a cat who will climb my model case and break everything. So I can't do the big cool YouTuber background.
I'd love to at some point. I just don't have a good setup for that kind of thing. Weird,
Yeah,
weird
you need
house.
like a nerd room, you know?
Yeah.
You need like a room that is like, this is my office slash like room that is decorated to be a video background.
But to kind of get back on topic, there is so much that the TTRPG community can still be. People may have noticed Paizo's been pushing a lot more stuff out lately. Not just like they already had a pretty insane publishing schedule.
Genuinely, yeah.
Compared to D&D. But now they're like this whole thing with Bickham Studios and the games they're putting out. Wrath of the Righteous, Kingmaker, the video game versions anyway. It means they're doing pretty well. And I expect them to continue doing well as long as everything kind of stays the same, you know? Even if D&D and WotC and everything was to go away suddenly, right? I feel like Paizo would still be good for like another year or two. After that, though, tabletop would leave the public eye real quick. It's plain and simple, you know?
I think, honestly, with that, it depends on a lot of other factors. Like, in this idea of if Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro, all that, if they go straight up bankrupt, like today, and be like, all right, 5e's never getting new content. Depending on just, I guess, people, like word of mouth, continuous like YouTube content, I feel like it can stay culturally relevant to the point where it stays active. It is, however, within like a decade or two, people will stop being as interested, I think, because if just literally nothing is coming out from official channels, it's going to fade out. I just think it's going to be like a longer wait because people will still play it. Because they have their 5e books currently, so it's just how much can like the media prop things up as like using D&D in stories or using people just talking about D&D like with Critical Role and all that.
So okay, so this is one I'm gonna tell to Dead Phoenix because this is the thing you don't buy, and Ryland, this is the thing that you don't buy as well. So, Critical Role Dimension 20, admittedly, pretty big. Million subscribers, lots of people watching their stuff. Dimension 20, watching their stuff. True. But what, like other stuff, like it's really hard to find Critical Role merch in stores. For instance, Dimension 20 even further away. Dimension 20 doesn't even have a Amazon show, that's going on currently. Critical Role has nowhere near, not even close, the funds to keep it in the public eye. See, in Electromaster, then you just want something different than what's honestly better for the hobby in general. You wanted it to be niche. And that's your prerogative, for sure. But that's not healthy for the industry. I want people to make TTRPGs and also make money. You can't have money unless there's a culture and a growing industry around it, which there currently is.
I'll also say, like, I've been thinking this during this stream. I also just think it's a situation where, like, for everybody, even I also don't like 5e in Wizards of the Coast. I don't like them. I play 5e because I like the game and the people that are in it. I don't like the actual system itself. You don't actually want D&D to fail, because if D&D fails, goes bankrupt, and even, for example, like, because a normal thing that'll happen, company goes bankrupt, and either their IP kind of stays until someone can yoink it up for a lot cheaper, or they directly sell it to someone else for just to make some money back. And let's say, yeah, Paizo like picks up the reins. Like, all right, we're the new tabletop kings. Okay, now they need to expand. A lot of people are making money. Then for a good while, and all the books and content you want for Pathfinder is completely sold out because they don't have the infrastructure to produce content on Hasbro scale. And then they have to expand. So they start getting financiers and people to invest in their company. People who probably were involved with Hasbro and Wizard of the Coast, who are then like, ah, hell yeah. Yeah, just we can give you some money. We just need to have a percentage stock ownership of your company. And they're like, okay, cool. And then the company grows more and more and more. And then we literally get Wizard of the Coast 2.0. Because that's what happens when a company becomes that big, is it is to sell to the greatest common denominator. So for a game to be that, 5e is currently that monolith, and everything else can grow and exist in this fun little indie scene where you have companies that like are small enough where they can still interact with their community, but big enough that they can make money and a profit. That's the reason we have so many good smaller tabletop companies, is because there's a single monolith making most of the money that then trickles down with the nerds and keeps the shareholders happily tucked in this one corporate culture so they don't have to go to another one and ruin a game you enjoy.
I want to use the term trickle down because D&D success is not necessarily the success of other tabletop, as evident by the many ardent people who refuse to play anything other than D&D.
I mean, there's still a trickle down of people who play D&D and then play something else.
Yeah,
it's at a smaller percentage. It is a trickle down. It's not like a pour down. It's a trickle from like some people who use it as their entry gateway drug.
Well, so that's the thing, right? Is yes and no. It's a lot more complex than that. Yes, people that are being and that's the whole crux of my my arguments, is D&D gets it out to people who see it, who try it out, like it, then become discontent and try something else. But there are people who would like it, you know. But the problem is that there's also a lot of people who won't trickle down because tabletop is just not for them, you know. So the chat's been flying by, and I am reading everyone's arguments. I am. So for Dev Phoenix, the money will go elsewhere. No, it won't. It's like React content, right? React content, it's been proven many times that, one, it doesn't trickle down, you know. There's tons of reaction stuff that's been stolen from people, and their videos even started underperforming. Evidence that, you know, React content is somewhat cancerous in a way. But it's... The thing is that when people don't get those reacts, they also just don't grow. You know, there's so much content being pumped out at any one time, even with React channels. It's not all getting brought out to the public. And sometimes there is stuff that is, and it does do really well, and they get boosts. Not always, not evident. The money just doesn't... We're not talking about who's already in the hobby. This is all not talking about who's already in the hobby. People who love tabletop will be fine without D&D. They're not the ones who are going to keep the hobby alive. And well, they are, but they're not the ones who are going to be able to keep it alive forever. You know, they're going to do their stuff, buy their things, but you need influxes of new people getting into it all the time. Tabletop, like, people don't understand. Tabletop has always existed, right? Before D&D. They've already put out books. They've already done things. Hell, even when D&D 4e came out and D&D pretty much had its biggest drop-off of players in general, Paizo got a little bit bigger, and that was it. You know? The money didn't just flood into the community.
If the money is going to transfer anywhere, if Wizard of the Coast completely fails, it's going to be whoever purchases the rights to the D&D license. That is where it's immediately going to go, for whoever that could be, because if they declare bankruptcy, like I keep using the hypothetical of, like, if they just go belly up tomorrow, that is what's going to happen, is that IP is going to be purchased by somebody else. And then who knows if they'll do it right. If anything, if that occurs, I can imagine a year or two of like, guys, D&D is fixed. They're actually making content. And then it goes right back to the same thing of big company with a lot of money behind it doing what big companies do because it's profitable and it's a stable business. Like, it's just going to eventually kind of end up in the same place. The D&D name is what sells at the end of the day, not their actual content. Like most like super casual tabletop players, which is probably the majority of the 5e player base, do not care about quality of rules. They're there because they like the game and they like having fun at their table, or they like the idea of playing D&D. Because as someone who's played with a lot of casual tabletop players, I think a lot of like us who are very deep into the shit of tabletop content kind of get lost of how big the casual market is.
Yeah, and the casual market is literally...
So many people.
Go ahead.
I've taught so many people how to play 5e, and you learn really quick. And someone left a comment on your video that I just like responded to because I think it's really annoying. The sentiment is the whole thing of calling like 5e is the gateway drug is a fallacy. Like going into, yeah, people can just switch. You don't understand. You're talking as a person who's never been at a table and been friends with like primarily casual tabletop enjoyers. That's not an option. Sometimes you can't just switch because no one at your table wants to switch, or you're at a table with 3 people who can't remember how to make an attack roll 2 years after playing the game, like consistently every week.
Yeah.
So it is like that. The idea of playing a thing like Pathfinder is a nightmare to a lot of casual players. They play it because it's D&D. And at the end, there's nothing wrong with that if someone's just enjoying their life playing D&D. Yeah. But that market will die. And that is where so much money is made.
So much money, but not only that, but so much, again, general interest comes from. People introduce their friends to play the game because it's kind of fun, kind of quirky, and, eventually one in so many people get into the hobby more seriously. Yep. It's inarguable how amazingly helpful 5th edition has been for the TTRPG community. You could say that Stranger Things helped, which it did to some degree, but the game wasn't just so easy to jump into. That's where it would have ended.
And yeah, Rylan, that is the reason why Wizard of the Coast is really heavily switching to subscription-based, because you can't make repeat money off of people who already own your books or are at a table and then hand out all your books. That is like, if you have 5 players at there and one person bought the book, you've lost in on like the $60 that each other player would have had to spend. And also, yeah, I mean, speaking of like that specific situation, you mentioned, Cam, that straight up happened with my sister. She doesn't currently play D&D anymore, but as it started getting more and more popular, like she got into it for a while and then just over time dropped it because like, I just liked the group. I wasn't actually interested in the game. Mm-hmm. And like, it happens. If people like, it becomes way less, because it's the same thing with the shows she watched that I saw, like the change of D&D's like public appeal. She was also a person of like, tabletop, that's such a nerdy, lame thing. Why would you ever do that? That looks stupid. And then over time, seeing her excitedly tell me about her sorcerer character is a very fun shift.
Yeah, and the thing is like, people are like, if people leave the hobby, let them leave. They're not the kind of people I want to play with anyway. But those are the people who are paying money to your hobby. Even if it's just a fad, even if it's just buying shirts or whatever, it's something that like tabletop, not as many people liked tabletop before. Not as many people thought tabletop was cool before. It wasn't in the general public zeitgeist. It wasn't. Matt Mercer, the whole crew, Critical Role, loved tabletop, played Pathfinder 1st edition. But you know what? what where they are now, they're playing, well, now they're playing versions of 5e and versions of other more rules light games because they're easier for setting up for content purposes, which I completely understand.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially because of how much of your like audience is like, you're playing the game wrong. What rule of cool, but that's not in the book. I see so many of those tweets of just people being like, they did this wrong. And it's like, well, we made a little house ruling for this, and like that shouldn't happen. No. It's like rules light stuff, you just don't have to deal with it.
But yeah, Electromassa, you bought all those books and everything. You're really into the hobby, but you know what? You still have purchased less than a percent of a percent of all those PHBs that all the casuals bought. Plain and simple. It's just numbers. It's just numbers. It's all it is. Y'all can talk about how you want tabletop to be. You can all talk about what you think games should be. You can even dislike Wizards of the Coast for how they treat 5th edition. And I can agree with most of that. But the one thing is money is what brings tabletop to everyone. It's the amount of VTTs that have been fully developed, not because of people buying content on Roll20, funny enough. It's not. It's actually mostly money given to them by companies to develop new software for their products. Because they can spend money at amounts absurd that your common everyday person can't even imagine. Does something being cool and better, popular, make it better? Yeah, actually, it does, because it means more money is being filtered into the hobby, which means the things that you enjoy are probably benefiting to some degree.
It also, like, it depends on which framework you're asking that question. Because if you're asking that as, like, for us deep in the tabletop scene, like, it's a little disingenuous. But then, like, when it's out in the public eye, like, as mass market appeal as things are, big things are popular for a reason. People like all one thing if it's just good. It's like the people who make fun of pumpkin spice. Like, you can make fun of it for being basic and boring, but it makes all this money and it's a repeating thing because everyone enjoys it. The thing that truly matters at the end of the day is if people using a product or a game or something at least just have fun doing it. And it's just 5e has the money behind it to have mass market appeal, and I still think it's my point of, we are kind of lucky to have a game that is mass market appeal, so all these other tabletop games have the chance to be truly what their creators want and make enough money for people like us who are just nerdy, and then all of those like corporate shills can go stay over in the 5e camp and not fuck with other companies.
Yeah.
Because it would be a genuine nightmare for all of us if Paizo started making some of the decisions Hasbro does. If a game like Lancer, Vampire the Masquerade, any of those games got that big and then just watching it die would be depressing.
True, I agree. In fact, a point I was going to make earlier, I was just trying to keep up with chat here, is I'm glad WotC and Hasbro are the ones taking the bullet, trying to make tabletop profitable, which has been a near impossible task that's been going on ever since tabletop became a purchasable thing, you know?
Yeah.
I'm glad that big ass corporation can do all the research, take all the hits, find all the things, and find something that actually works, so that other companies can just mime it and do it better.
Yeah.
And not lose a bunch of money.
I do think it is the existence of 5e is a pretty solid reason that helps the marketing budget of a lot of smaller tabletop publishers, because all you got to do from a money standpoint is release some tweets of, man, Wizards of the Coast really bumbled this one, huh? Why don't you check out a company that didn't make this giant fuck up? And then everyone's like, yeah, hell yeah. And then easy money. You get a new player base. Do they stick around? Maybe not, but maybe they buy your core book. Maybe they buy something. And that's really what matters. Or they at least build up enough engagement on your shit so that people who are interested and haven't found out about it yet then get into it. It is the existence of a big monolith company that boosts a lot of smaller things to exist.
And Jaden Stevens here, tabletop RPGs are not in the public eye. Dungeons and Dragons is. That's a terrible statement. They're synonymous. In fact, they're so synonymous. I literally tell my family members who are not into the hobby that I make content based on Dungeons and Dragons like things. Because they instantly know exactly what I'm talking about. Dungeons and Dragons is synonymous with rolling dice, dressing up in cosplay in your basement, and playing characters. You know.
It's
but
the
now
same
it's cool.
thing as trying to explain to your like older parents or your grandparents what your game console isn't a Nintendo. It's the same conversation. It's to the point where people who don't understand, they just call it the one thing that's big enough that they've heard of it.
And like everyone is just like, oh, all these people fall off. It just blah 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 blah. Advertisement is considered successful when 1 in 100 people buy your product.
There are a lot of humans on this earth, and most of them are not on social media and in the tabletop sphere. Like there's I think people forget how big like things are, because I see it often just being on Twitter, people who are like referencing internet shit, and it's like there's a lot of people who don't get what you're talking about because it's not the general market where everything like these communities we're in are super niche. They might have like hundreds of thousands of people in them. That's still fucking niche when you're comparing it to millions.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, is like tabletop is still infantile. It's still in a space right now where, you know, if it wasn't for the fad of D&D, if it wasn't for the name of D&D, right, most people wouldn't even know what you were talking about.
Like
that's
me.
Why you need D&D.
I got into this hobby because of D&D, because it got really big in the tabletop boom of like, when was that? 2015, 2016? Is that when that renaissance hit?
Yeah.
There's a dedicated date of when that is.
2015-ish. 2015, yeah. 2016-ish.
I got into D&D in 2015. I'm literally that case example of it. I got into it because of Critical Role and like all of that. That is my situation. And we haven't even had a decade of the boom. We're close. I'll say we were pretty fucking close, but like we haven't even had a full decade of the tabletop resurgence. There's still places it can go, dumber decisions that these companies can make, different games that can come out and blow up. Like we just kind of got to see how things shake out.
And I'm not here to argue like would a different company do D&D better. That's not the argument. That's not when I say WotC, why it needs WotC. It's because WotC holds the golden goose. That's it.
They are big man on campus. There will always be a big man. It's just who's going to be that role. If a different company controlled D&D, then they'd be in the same position, and we've been talking about that company instead of Wizard of the Coast.
Yeah.
Imagine a split parallel where Pathfinder is as big as D&D. It's like the positions have swapped. Like it's the exact same points, exact same argument, because under the capitalistic system, it has to work this way. It ends up to this point. Big mass market appeal.
I think people just don't realize how good tabletop is nowadays compared to where it used to be. Like,
as someone who doesn't fully know where it used to be, it feels pretty good right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy.
Like VTTs were very rudimentary, barely worked, anything like that.
I have seen some old Pathfinder tools and they looked a little rough, My sympathies to those who had to learn how to deal with them.
And even finding bookstores that had anything other than like a D&D book would be rough. Like, bookstores have expanded whole sections just for D&D. That's the TTRPG section expanded. The old stuff is still in the same cramped single bookcase, but now there's additional D&D ones that bring people over that way. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really good example of why it works.
The amount of times I went when I was getting into it, looking at D&D books at Barnes and Noble, and then seeing like Pathfinder, being like, oh yeah, no, Pathfinder is too complicated. We wouldn't like that. The amount of times I said that when I was like 16, 17.
But see, Dev Phoenix, that's the point. D&D is only helping itself right now. That's... D&D brings people into itself who then see tabletop because D&D is a tabletop game. And then are like, huh, I really like this game. I wonder if there's any other games out there. And it may be 1 in 100 people who decides to check out another game. But that's still more people than the entire rest of the industry pretty much brings in. Combined. Like, it's just talking business to people who don't understand business. It's not that D&D is a good game. D&D is a very shabby game at best. It's a good TTRPG, or it's a bad TTRPG disguised as a good TTRPG with all the bells and whistles and everything on it. The fact that Baldur's Gate 3 is only literally as fun as it is because they themselves had to homebrew D&D to make it work.
My favorite is when I see the mods for people turning Baldur's Gate 3 into normal base 5e. It's like, what? Why? Why are you removing these parts? These are the parts that make the game fun. What do you mean you want to make all these actions into full actions? That sounds awful. The lame part of 5e is how many really lame bits are not bonus actions. But yeah, I mean, I feel like also Mega reacts. Our point isn't that 5e is the best game in the market. It's what's most popular. That's the point of what we're talking about. It's not like we're not saying this is like simping for our 5e games. I'm the only one here that is in a 5e game, and I'm in a game that is so heavily homebrewed. I don't think you could call it 5e. I am playing my friend's tabletop game. He sent me a giant list of how he completely changed my character that functions like no other bard I've ever seen play. So it is like, it's not even like we're having fun at different tables. It's a big ass market, and we have the one company that's making a lot of success and doing everything they can to stay in that mass market appeal. And currently the only thing they need to actually do is keep their name in people's mouths, because they're in the beautiful state of just being the synonymous name with tabletop game. It's like, what are you guys doing today? Where are you go hanging out? Oh, we're gonna go do D&D. You're not playing D&D, you're playing Lancer, but explaining what Lancer is to somebody is too much work. Yeah. That is their win state. And so that is all they have to do to stay in it. So they'll just let people make a game. If they pay for the license, they let a movie be made. They fund a chunk of it. They work on whatever the fuck one D&D is to tide over as essentially what looks like a rules errata to 5e. That's really all one D&D is. It's just the same shit, but the wording is changed.
I'll never get over their showcase where they literally didn't talk about D&D except for the last like 3 minutes. And it was just, hey, we're releasing more adventure books. Be on the lookout. Nothing about 1D&D, except for the new VTT they're coming out with. The whole thing started off with a Minecraft collaboration.
Yeah, when we watched it, and we're like,
and toys from the movie.
It was just an ad. We didn't watch anything.
It was the worst direct I've ever seen.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I felt tremendously bad for anyone who enjoyed D&D 5e who watched that. because that was
Yeah.
if FromSoft came out and did something like that, being like, oh, we're introducing a new Elden Ring Minecraft collaboration, I would be like, oh no, it's the dark timeline. Someone fucked up. Is like, we're not talking about what makes tabletop fun. We're not talking about what's the most valid way of playing tabletop. We're not talking literally about anything other than bringing people into the hobby through D&D. And that requires a massive amount of money. Tremendous amounts of money. I haven't looked into this part. A lot of people were flubbing on, or were like making fun of the D&D movie, right? Because the D&D movie didn't do super well in box offices. To be honest, most movies aren't actually doing super well in box offices.
Also true. We're in a really poor state of box office releases because companies are releasing movies really weird because they're trying to be like, streaming's the way, but streaming doesn't make money. Box office sales are very important to movie profits, and yeah, it's just we're in a state where that's just kind of the norm. So it's not a gotcha. Even then, it's like a movie that still did pretty well. It did fine. I'm pretty sure it made its budget back and then some. That was a success.
Something else. The movie wasn't designed to succeed in the box office. The movie was designed to sell merch. That's why it was made. You know how many times I go into game stores, bookstores, everything, and see gelatinous cube items, plushies, Displacer Beasts, also Electromaster. I also thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I thought it was perfect tabletop in movie
They did
form.
a great job making what a D&D movie that people actually wanted, because it was actually funny. I was listening to a podcast where they're like also just now getting into D&D for some like extra content thing. And they were talking about the D&D movie, and the first thing one of them said was, oh, is it like good, or is it just a bunch of like, does it keep cutting to a bunch of like nerds in a basement playing a game? And it was like, no, it's actually set in a fantasy world. Then immediately everyone is like, oh, okay, that actually sounds interesting. Because how many fucking weird tabletop products have we got that it's just like, aha, it's like a tabletop game. It's nerds playing it. No, it's actually well done. It's what people wanted. It is an adventure in this world with things you can point at and be like, that's that thing. I know what that is. Me, when it first appeared, it's like Icewind Dale. I knew where they were right from the first shot.
And also had some tabletop nonsense. I love the mind eaters, whatever they're called. I can't think of their name at the moment.
Oh, the Displacer Bees?
No, the little brains.
Oh, the Intellect Devourer?
Intellect Devourers. They're like, be careful. They'll eat anything with a higher intelligence, and then they just walk by the group. That was super funny. And Mega Reacts. This is such a mentality I don't understand. The disconnect of not wanting more people in the hobby. Why, for the love of God, would you not want more people in the hobby? Like, well, yeah, definitely just said it there. Literally, you can continue playing your games, your preferred games, whatever, and it just more people can give you the things you enjoy money to do more stuff with. In fact, it's been proven that this has actually been happening. Lancer is getting a hardcover book.
I'm so excited for that.
I am getting it.
Yeah.
I already own the PDFs and one of their adventure PDFs. I will be getting the hardcover book because obviously it's been doing well. Also, they're kind of leaning on Kill 1 Billion Demons as well, because that's also
that's really good.
And people can, like, you can dislike how Electromass has mostly been saying just disliking how D&D has been run. That's fair. Honestly.
It is not run well.
I agree. That's fine. Play the games in the way you want to play. Hopefully they're, like, even to this day, despite how much I enjoy Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I keep thinking I wish there was a tabletop that was my perfect tabletop. That's just the exact things I want in a tabletop. because that currently doesn't exist. I want a tabletop where exploration is like a built-in mechanic in the system that you can work off of. That's something that's cool to me. That's what I want. I want to explore these fantastical worlds with my friends and not force all the creative process on the DM.
Yeah, and it's like with how, again, like the tabletop renaissance has only really been active for less than a decade.
Yeah,
There's a
7-ish
solid
years.
chance we're all going to be talking about a completely different game in another decade. Just 10 years down the line,
I
it's
hope
like,
to
oh, this is a
God.
new game. Yeah, there's just a solid chance that like we find some fucking tiny little indie thing or some new game drops, and then we try it out and we're like, holy fuck, this is really good. That's just really solid. That'll happen. Things get released. It's like how when you're just like, man, this year's been great for gaming, and then a random indie game drops, and you're like, oh my god, it's even better year for gaming.
Yeah, you know.
It's just it happens. Things just are being worked on. There's always just going to be a new product that comes out like in these spaces, in these very creative spaces that are have more money for people to actually like do something in. We're in a state where people can like actually say my job is to write tabletop content like rules. It's pretty crazy. It's very cool. So I'm super interested in what the future of this all holds. Because
All right.
I just want an actually good 40k tabletop game. I've heard Dark
Yeah.
Heresy is good. It's not exactly what I'm seeking though. I want like the vibe of what you can do in Wrath of the Righteous, just not without its core rules. Because I think its
Yeah.
core dice system is very okay.
That's fair. You know, and I think that again, that's mostly what Electromasta has been saying, is just wanting the game to be a little bit better tuned in the way they want, or preferring a more older style. I think that's completely fine.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
I don't support any of what WotC has done to D&D.
No,
by any means.
I not in the slightest. Because it's like I think one thing that I truly want, and I'll always be waiting for. I like the thing I like that Wrath of the Righteous does is I want a 40k game where you can actually grow with the power scaling of the universe, because a lot of like Warhammer stuff, if you're making it in lore, is kind of stuck at whatever power scaling you start at, because that's just not a thing in Warhammer. But it's like I kind of want that. I kind of want to like have people start out being like, you're fighting like this tiny little like chaos cult in a hive city, to like, oh god, you're dealing with a whole orc wa as like an entire fleet. I want like that level of scaling to hop up. That's just not a thing in the market at all.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say to Mega Reacts here, I 100% condone enjoying tabletop the way you want, and I also think it's valid to not really care about much else if you already got what you want going on. That brings up the question of then why, you know, why comment on the things going on or disagree or whatever, you know, or even not want more people in the hobby. It's just something to ask yourself. I think it's fine that you enjoy tabletop the way you do, or that you just don't care. I don't think, you know, you need to necessarily worry about it. But, you know, the reason why there's some discourse is because you say one thing contrary, but then you say you don't care. It just sounds like you're backing out of an argument, you know? If you're not going to give a valid, like, point of criticism, that's what we're talking about here. So, it's... And so like a lot of people here, right? It's like, yeah, I see all your opinions, and I may disagree with them, but everyone's entitled to feel about the hobby the way that they do or want. And
Everyone has their own preferences for stuff. Some might think these preferences are worse. We had a conversation with a person who actually likes ammunition tracking, which I think is insane. That is an insane thing to enjoy, but people can like it. I'm just gonna think it's kind of weird and dumb, but that's how it be. Or you can have your differing opinions on like the discourse that's slightly going on. of having, you know, actual ability score stuff still tied to what race you pick. I I mean, I'm in the opinion of I actually enjoy that they made it so you can just free pick, because sometimes a cool race has like an ability or something I want, or I have the capability to tell a story I want to tell, but it's like, oh, I have to play this now specific class because this only gives me strength, but I want to play like a wizard. I always thought that was really lame.
And you can still do it that way. Like
You still can.
Pathfinder is just like, we have these rules if you want to use them, or you can just do two boosts. That's it.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
like that, just like the idea of just, hey, here are the things in place. Pick which one you want. Because then everyone's happy. If it's just like, all right, you pick. Which would you like your table to have? Which would you like you as a player, what would you like to do? Because people have different like characters idea. Some might have like want to play the classic like elf ranger like dual short sword kind of player, or someone's like, I want to play an elf barbarian. I want to play a little string bean man who's jacked. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Some people want to play a halfling barbarian and just do the missile barbarian build. That sounds fun.
Yeah. You know. And if that's not the way you enjoy your games, that's also valid. But just don't make that
Yeah.
anyone else's problem.
As long
Simple.
as it's yeah, it's always the thing of, as long as you're not forcing it onto other people who might not want that style of play, you're good. But, you know, there's tables for everyone. At some point, with enough digging, you can find a table that all agree with your position, and you can play your perfect version of whatever game you play.
And that happens only when there's a big pool of players to play the game, which
Yep.
means getting more people into the hobby on a regular basis. Because people are going to fall off, so we need people to fill those ranks, you know? And they have been in surplus. So the community has gotten much bigger than it ever has, you know? And it's, I mean, the point I wanted to make as well is, like, even if Dead Phoenix and I disagree here about like what will happen if WotC disappears, whether the money will go elsewhere or not, I don't think Dead Phoenix is dumb for not agreeing with me, and I hope the same is true the other way. Discourse is what we're here for, because in the end, you can't know for sure, but you can definitely look at current media. You can look at all kinds of things and make inferences, but you know, weirder things have happened. I want everyone to understand, I'm here to have a conversation. If I disagree with you, I'm not discounting what you say. I am taking into consideration, but I am by no means obligated to agree with you. So my view is modern day D&D is absolute shit as a majority of the player base, but I also understand D&D is making tons of cash and is more popular than ever, so 5e is working as intended. I mean, yes, but none of that is what we're talking about today. Actually. It sounds like a lot of biases getting in the way. What we're talking about today is the tabletop RPG community as a whole. The people who get interested in OSR stuff will probably never hear about OSR unless they get into D&D first. And the most likely way they are to get into D&D stuff is through 5th edition.
Yeah. It's also like, it's specifically the idea too, because I assume this is brought on with seeing this a bunch, because we're in different spheres. I just have people being stupid about 40k and wanting to gatekeep 40k from being a thing people can get into and enjoy, and or just people being dumb about lore. But like, there are people who are saying they want D&D 5e to collapse completely. They want the company bankrupt. They want all that, and it's just, no, you really don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why it just being destroyed, like Wizards of the Coast going bankrupt, is a bad deal. Right now, it's because like it is keeping your games corporate free. You'll still have to deal with it. To people who are getting really upset about the remaster for 2nd edition Pathfinder, it's like you kind of have to deal with corporate bullshit. You have to change certain things for legal purposes. That is the reason. You kind of just have to put up with it. You can have some issues with some weird rule changes, but if you're getting upset over like keywords being changed or monsters having different names, and like you're legitimately angry about it, I think that's a little silly for the idea of needing to make sure your game is legally protected. That should just be a good thing. Because I've seen that a few times, and I always just kind of am baffled of like, please explain to me why you think this is a bad thing. I want to know why you think this. But it's people view that way, or it's people who are very reactionary. They have that like that emotional response to it. Not saying it's a bad thing to have an emotional response to something like that, but specifically you're just like, oh, I'm so fucking pissed off, and you're like, yeah, fuck them. I wish they were gone. And it's like, yeah, but if you're legitimately arguing that, it's a different story. Because if you're legitimately arguing it, there's flaws with your argument.
Yeah, and you know, as I've said before, I am beholden to no masters in the TTRPG space. I could switch off a Pathfinder tomorrow if another game warranted my interest enough.
I'm here because my friends are here. So I just want to... I'll switch to whatever game you switch with because I like the games you do.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here. I like our group. And honestly, if you really enjoy a game, I'm most likely going to enjoy it. Mainly because I like playing things that my friends like. Because I like the energy those things make.
Oh, and for Yuki and Mega, who are currently having a bit of a discourse. I mean, so first of all, thank you, Mega, for the sub to the channel. I appreciate that. Second, I know it's very obviously your opinion. But also, when you put your opinions out into the space, be ready for people to refute them. And Yuki, if someone says it's their opinion, then say their opinion is shit and move on. Don't need to hassle anyone for their opinions, you know? I want to make sure that everyone understands. I want tabletop to succeed more than anything. More than anything in my life, because tabletop's been my hobby, my passion. Whether I like people in certain parts of the community or not is irrelevant to me, because as long as they're still in the hobby and still like putting money into the hobby in some way, it works out. If D&D is a complete shit show and everyone who liked it is trash, there's still going to be those people who fall off of it because it is trash, who then fall into something else, which emboldens those communities, you know? Like, even if the most like justified opinions are true, right? Obviously, you can't generalize a whole group of people. And it's just fact that other communities have blossomed and bloomed under D&D. And you know, as Alex said earlier, and as I've said in my video, I hope D&D well, not D&D specifically. In fact, I want D&D to get better. If anything, I'd love for D&D, the IP, to be given to another company who can give it more justice and love than it has gotten.
I would be immensely happy if they were like, hey guys, one D&D, we were just joking. We were joshing you. Here's a good system. And then they dropped a bunch of rules that were actually cool. I would be over the moon. I just want more games to enjoy. That's all I care about. I just want more things for the hobby that I like doing. More content is a good thing.
But I do wish WotC a long, slow, painful death.
I do too.
As a corporation.
If they stay in the direction they are, I hope that a lot of executives pour a lot of money into a thing that slowly decays over time, to where then they have to readjust as a smaller company and then make the game good, actually. Yeah. I look forward to 6th edition D&D, because that is when we'll get 6E, is when they have the financial situation where they have to actually pivot to being good, because that's the reason that's like why
that
EA
mass market appeal
has made is why
changes, yeah.
It's also why the mass market appeal is making it so they can't switch one D&D to be 6e, because the mass market doesn't understand what an edition change is. They don't even understand what a rules errata is. So they can't do it. They have to call it something different.
Yeah. Let them suffer with that while other companies
Exactly.
just put out a new edition. And all the tabletop players are like, well, guess I'm buying a new book. I'm excited.
Yep.
I want to see the new book.
I'll just sit happily along for Lancer to get more content as it gets more popular.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk, Yuki, day and night about the changes coming with whatever D&D is doing next.
I get one of them. I've mentioned I'm in a D&D game. One of the players tells me about some of the changes, and for a lot of them, I sit there and I listen. I'm like, that's the same thing, or it's like that's such a minor change. Or they're just switching something slightly, like this. Okay, so this is just like a weird rules update, or it's like, oh yeah, they made it so this thing is only now like this. And it's like, oh, so it's lamer. What's the change? Because yeah, they're making paladins worse. They're less fun because they're less strong. Because paladins are like the one good class in 5e.
I don't agree with the statement, but
well, warlocks thematically are dope. I wish their rules were a little stronger.
I was even talking about warlocks, but
What were you talking about?
I think a lot of the classes can be really fun. Honestly, Druid has some really fun ones. Spore Druid, super cool.
I don't know about druids. Their rules pretty bad because it's all like nature magic. Just kind of lame.
But like the thing is that what most people don't understand is D&D's success is the success of tabletop in general. In by no ways a very like substantial amounts, but culturally it has been huge, and that's also due to things that have spawned around D&D. But the only reason why Critical Role and Dimension 20 can have done as well as they have is because of how easy 5th edition is to get into. Because if there wasn't communities of people getting into the game and loving it right away, then they wouldn't have done as well as because no one's going to want to watch a story based on a game that they don't like unless, those people are really funny and charismatic, which I mean is fair, but
yeah,
they wouldn't have the same audience scale.
Because also, just even from a fucking production side, which is a lot of where I focus on, because that's more my wheelhouse, is imagine trying to run a show that is predicated with a lot of side content with, let's invite really big names, like celebrities, actors, comedians, all these people, maybe have never touched a tabletop game, and then you're like, all right, learn Pathfinder while being funny. That is so hard. Yeah, 5e is so simple, and it's so much easier to just be like, okay, we can pull you along with the rules. You can learn as we play. Your job is to improv and be funny. That's so much harder in like a more rules crunchy game. That's why a lot of them are switching to rules light, because it's so much easier on a production side. The point is you're not playing a game. The point is that you're telling a story, doing group theater, making a production. That is the point. There are content for people who are making games, but when you get to a larger aspect, that kind of falls off because you need just new people in who haven't played these games before. It's just normal. It makes more sense.
Yeah. And for Yuki, I very much disagree. If they were playing Pathfinder 1E, first of all, the players would have struggled because I'll tell you, some of the Critical Role crit cast still struggle even with D&D sometimes. Granted, I haven't watched a lot of their content in like the last year, so maybe they've gotten substantially better.
I know the one thing at least is it seemed like they were struggling with having their sheets be virtual. There were a lot of, like, I remember seeing that in season 2 where they started doing D&D Beyond, where it was very clear like half of them hated D&D Beyond, or at least just wanted to go back to using it like pen and paper.
They wouldn't. That's the point. Wait, they wouldn't what?
They wouldn't make I don't think they would just make
the time
the show in
delay.
Pathfinder.
The time delay is causing issues.
Yeah, but at the very least, like if Critical Role stuck with Pathfinder, I don't think it would be where it is.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but they wouldn't have gotten all the money that they needed to make their whole studio, actually.
Yeah,
because of all the deals they made with D&D, especially with D&D Beyond.
They were still a bigger company even when they started. They were bigger than like Paizo at the time, I believe.
What? D&D?
Like D&D was still a bigger name.
Oh, what?
The money behind
Fourth edition was bigger than Paizo.
Yeah, exactly.
More people got 4th edition books than 1st edition Pathfinder.
It's just there's a larger push to it, and also just like, yeah, if you're trying to run a production, pick the easier game. It's the better idea. And also pick the easier game to run that is also beautifully the bigger household name. Because like I'll say, even as someone who wasn't really well versed in tabletop games growing up, I knew what D&D was for so long. I like as like a child, single digit age range, I knew the word D&D. I knew it was some nerdy hobby thing where like you dress up in a costume in a basement and throw fireballs or something. That's what I probably thought when I was like 6. But like it's a name that you hear. It's like not knowing what a Nintendo is, you know? It's the thing. You're just like, oh yeah, that you're playing on your Nintendo again.
Yeah, people don't know this because, you know, people who actually stayed in the hobby and who were actually interested in tabletop at the time went to other games. But 4th edition D&D still sold way better than 1st edition Pathfinder.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Even though all I know is that just 4E was bad. But then people make a lot of jokes about it. I've never touched it. I am young. I'm only like 22, and I only got into tabletop in like 2015, 2016. I think specifically around like when Critical Role was at like episode 30 or something. I only found out about it because I started playing Fire Emblem Awakening, and I was like, damn, these voice actors went hard. Who played them? Matthew Mercer, who's this guy? Critical Role, what's this thing? And then that's how I got into tabletop.
And so for Yuki, so actually they didn't start play at level 12. No, they started play at level 6. First of all, second of all, they played like once a month or something like that, and they've even said themselves that Pathfinder was a much harder game, and when they switched to 5th edition, it was nice because it was so much easier. Even though some of them had to make a lot of changes, some of them couldn't play the same characters, like Percy.
Yeah, gunslingers wasn't a thing in 5e.
Yeah. So. And that's the thing, like, it's all brand, yeah, but I don't know how many times I have to say it. Like, yeah, D&D is the thing that sold because it was well known, because it's synonymous with tabletop. That wouldn't matter if a big company wasn't putting a bunch of money into it to sell actual products. You know? Like, that's the whole argument here, is that money is what actually allows people to see this kind of stuff, and people still need to see this kind of stuff. We still need to bring more people into the hobby, even though the hobby is doing better than it ever has before. It's still not at a level that I would say I'd be comfortable with if D&D just dropped off the face of the planet, or if to put more semantics, if WotC fell off the face of the planet and D&D went to a different kind of publisher. Because, well, first of all, another big corporation would have to buy D&D, because
it would
the price,
be some Hasbro subsidiary for sure.
The selling price would be insane, and not only that, but production costs for the books and everything would have to be handled by a massive company. So we're picking devils here, right?
Yeah. Imagine the world where Wizard of the Coast specifically goes bankrupt, and then Hasbro, who owns them, is just like, ah, shucks, well, guess we got to sell the IP, and then immediately turns around and kind of funds another company under them to purchase the rights to D&D. And they're like, ah, well, new management, and then literally nothing changes.
So, it's necessary that big companies run this kind of thing, do all the R&D, find all this kind of stuff. That's just what keeps the industry going. If it, and you know what? Even if somehow D&D disappeared, all the money that was going to D&D would not be going to the other tabletops. All the people that fell off of D&D, or maybe there'll be some upticks. Like, I'll admit, like, there'll be maybe some upticks in some other companies because people are like, oh, I really liked D&D. Weird that it just suddenly vanished out of the world like that. We should try a different game. And then they'll try one game, maybe two games, and then fall off. And that's not how the industry would just die, or at the very least, it would suffer quite a bit, especially for like the amount of production ramping up that Paizo has done. And then we'd be back at scratch. All the money that D&D is making would not just go to other tabletops as much as we wish it would.
I do hope. I wish that would be the case. It would just go to whoever bought the rights to D&D. That is where all the money would go, like, again. I think, honestly, best case scenario, if Wizard of the Coast lost D&D and it, like, went belly up, is that for a couple years we get actually 6th edition D&D, and then we watch literally the exact same thing happen again. It's just what's going to happen. Eventually you get to a point where you're like, wow, we kind of lose money when we make new rules, huh? What if we just didn't do that? What if we just made adventure books? Because they're pretty cheap in-house. We can put them together. People will buy them. A lot of people say they suck, but they'll still buy them just to collect the book. So let's just put out these easier pieces of media that cost us less.
I mean, I'll agree with you there, Mega Reacts. It would probably just go to the next fad.
Literally.
Which is irrelevant to this conversation. I guess, from my perspective, Pathfinder and OSR games are D&D. Well, yeah, and so, like, that's, I think, cognitive dissonance between people who have been in the hobby versus people who are new to the hobby is that people are like, you're saying that the game's eye level disappear when WotC goes away. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Things might not even roughly change for you. The problem is things will slow down, production get essentially worse over time until things are back at the snail-like pace they were back in the 90s. I mean, you say that's better, then you're dumb. Plain and simple.
I would be so much sadder if it's like I can't just open Twitter and see a cool new thing that's dropping for like a game I enjoy. I'll be very sad because I enjoy following a lot of the companies and seeing the stuff they make, and I'm very happy that they get the money and the people to actually keep funding them to do more shit because they can get more eyes on them, or just that the chance of indie publishing is just more of a thing now as it got more popular and as like the internet kind of became more and more of a thing.
Well, and like, I'll tell everyone right now, D&D does not make most of its money from printing books.
No,
plain and
not
simple.
in the slightest. You really don't make a lot of money off printing.
It's digital products right now have been really huge for them, which is why they're pushing it super hard. It's also various, IP things, swag, merch, all that kind of stuff. It's where they make the majority of their money. They're trying to make selling books money because they see the potential in it. But that's why they keep doing all these really wonky things with it, because they keep trying to monetize it in different ways and failing. Like the OGL business, which was their attempt at making more money off of third-party content, which failed miserably.
It's so difficult to increase monetization of certain products because right now the only real consistent method that you can monetize a lot of stuff nowadays is purely from a subscription base. There's a reason why like everything is becoming a subscription. It's because just one-time purchases you don't make a lot of money off of. You got to have people continuously giving you money. And then you need a bank that there are people who will just straight up forget that they bought your subscription. You have to just work off of that model. Everything works on a pay by month period. So that's why they're pushing really hard into doing that. Or they can get themselves some nice tasty residuals from other people doing the work for them.
Yeah.
Just by sitting there doing nothing. Because at this point, they're so big that doing work costs too much money for it to be profitable.
Yeah. That's the insane thing. We've had this conversation back during the OGL business.
It's how it works when some companies get so big, is just operating your company and doing extra work is more money than it would if you actually created the product. So you just kind of got to coast off of what you have.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, everyone in the chat right now is talking about D&D memes and everything like that. This is what I think people think of when old hats look at new players and they see all these D&D memes of really old, dumb, wonky like stories in tabletop, or just like making broken builds or everything, and then like, these people don't understand tabletop. Why do I want them in my hobby? And that's by far not the majority. Maybe it might be a majority, but like, there's a healthy amount of people who just take it seriously. Like, as someone who's run Adventures League and was at a pretty big store too, we had like more than 40 people at our Adventures League.
It's much bigger than any game store I got in my area.
The people who were coming and enjoying the game were the kinds of people who have always been coming and enjoying the game. Like, the same somewhat antisocial, socially inept people who are coming to just come and tell you about their favorite character who's completely based off of a video game character they've recently seen, and spit in your face constantly.
Yeah.
True story.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Like, it sounds cartoonish, but literally I've met these people. And that's why, like, I understand when people are afraid of the new people coming into the hobby. But there's also amazing people coming in who are bringing great ideas, great stories. Like Mech Finder, for instance. James, pretty young guy, and I say that when I think he's a little younger than you, Alex.
Yeah, I was about to say, he's like around my age.
He's 22.
If not, like, yeah, I'm turning 23 very
this
soon.
month, yeah.
Yeah, literally in like a week. But, you know, it's so yeah, he's a bit younger than I am.
And you know, there's tons of people, and like, it's not going to be everyone. There's just going to be casual enjoyers, but casual enjoyers will buy the things that you do. But heck, my fiance has purchased D&D books because they're fun, like Griffin Saddlebag and all that kind of stuff. We haven't played D&D in this house in years, and we still got some.
Sometimes like, I will say, as much as you can rag on them, like, they got some good shit in there when they're not trying to pass off weird AI art as like monster art, whatever the fuck that little saga online was. But like, you know, like, they have pretty fun production. It's also the element that we talked about on a previous Table Talk, where having that like inter-community thing where you can do big art pieces to like celebrate parts of the community. Because I do really like that one big piece in the Yawning Portal that has like every like a bunch of just people hidden in it as like characters hanging out in the Yawning Portal.
To be fair, it's really nice. Dragon Heist was a legitimately really good book, and
yeah, I mean, they have some good books. Like, I'll
they
say
do have some
the
bangers.
Descent to Avernus is a genuinely good adventure path. It is really cool. I like the story it tells, and it runs normally. Like it is so easy to work with, and I can't say the same about some other books that they've made. I really liked Descent to Avernus. I also like that it's replayable because it has multiple story paths you can go down. Like it's cool. They can do some good work. It's just, you know, I know their turnover rate for writers is pretty high apparently, so they
And
don't stick
Yuki,
around the longest.
calling them mindless consumers is super disingenuous. Just because they don't invest in the hobby as much as you do does not make them mindless. People are getting in, or people are buying. If it was mindless, there wouldn't be still so many people out there being like, "Why do you like that D&D stuff?" Right? It's not so popular that kids are buying it to like flash as swag at school. It's not Pokemon,
No.
for instance.
Like I got into Pokemon because it was a thing and I was kind of forced to by my brother. I never understood a fucking thing about like the card game. I still don't know how it works.
Tomb of
If
Annihilation had some
I
fun stuff too. A lot of
if
the
I
beginning
had to
ones.
say,
Go ahead. Sorry.
if I had to say, I would have gotten into Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid.
What do you mean by not making an informed decision? How can you justifiably defend that viewpoint? Who's
Also, like,
forcing these people to buy things they don't want to buy?
and like I know it's more leaning into the meme of like that Red Letter Media gif of, yeah, you buy product and then buy new product, like, but also it's the kind of thing of, do you need to? If a person just wants to buy a book because they like the book or they like the new thing coming out and they're happy for a bit, I don't know if it really matters if like it's considered quality. Because for every person like us who can scoff at like, ugh, that's so lame, there are like 100 more people who are like, that is so cool. I have the same book, and then they're like, oh hell yeah, and they can talk about it. It's just we have that rule of the minority kind of deal where we can kind of position ourselves as elite gamers, and we're above a lot of things, but it just doesn't matter. People can get joy out of whatever they enjoy.
Still buying D&D products after the shit show WotC pulled out at the beginning of the year. I mean, that's a conversation about separating the creator from the content, you know.
I personally never plan to give them a cent, but I also wouldn't hold other people to make that same decision that I've made.
And what about the content before any of the nonsense, right? Like the standard player's handbook, for instance, or stuff on the D&D movie, because the D&D movie was literally really fun.
Yeah, I guess I did pay for that one, but like, yeah, because if you've personally made the pledge to never give Wizard of the Coast any money for D&D, good shit, but it's not something you can hold other people to, because they're also a giant company. Your dollar, you not buying their shit doesn't actually matter in the long run.
And yeah, I mean, of course, it's not going to make as much money as Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is literally a collectible card game.
Collectible card games make so much bank, especially when you specifically build it around an economy for collecting rare cards.
And some pretty like intense, like pro leagues and everything, tournaments and all that.
True, the tournament scene is pretty big.
Like, if someone comes and buys a game book for a game, thinking I might try this one day, and then puts it on the shelf, does it make them mindless? No, they had the hope of playing a game that they never touched. I'm looking very hard at all y'all's Steam games lists.
Hey. You don't need to bring that up. 1 second. You know what? I'm going to do this. I have currently like sick brain, so I'm kind of like a little loopy still. I'm going to make a mistake and self-call out. I'm going to go to Steam Wallet, like the thing that tells you how much your Steam library is worth. Let's do this call out.
How much mine is worth or yours is worth?
Mine. Okay, I just need to get my URL.
And see, that's the thing, Yuki, is like, still not everyone is. It's just different worlds. It's crazy. How much?
Okay, so there's two price points I can name. There's the lowest price and today's price. The lowest price account value is $4,706. However, the today's prices, if I bought it all today, is $13,903.
Oof.
In my defense, a good chunk of these are from charity bundles.
True. I mean, hence the $9,000 difference.
Yeah. But like, you know, I have 730 games in my library. I've played 476 of them. Sue me. You know?
But that's what I mean, right? Is
Yeah.
like, thank you, Koha Darissa, for the follow. Welcome to this shit show of a conversation. I do think there's some value here. There's a lot of things. True, Dead Phoenix. Oh my god. I don't even want to think about that. My Final Fantasy 14 sub. Right now, I haven't played in almost a year, I think. The only time I ever get on is to keep our house from being demolished. That's about it. Suzanne and I fought for like a full 24 hours for that house.
That's dedication.
Nuts. Yeah, we wanted a house. We have one, but it took a lot of fighting.
I really like hearing about how the fucking real estate market in that game worked. It was really interesting. Of like, this is fucking weird.
Well, Koho, or Kojo, however you prefer it, or Darissa, if that's what you like. Watch it. If you need more context, I start talking about it in this live stream at the 25:33 mark, somewhere around there. So, Kojo. Okay. I will do my best to remember. Thank you, Mega. We're about done here anyway. It was fun shaking my head for the last hour. I'm glad you had fun. Have a nice day. Yep, you can find the VOD on Twitch for like a week, and then you can catch it here on the YouTube Live tab. Make sure you remember, everyone, there is a Live tab. You can see all our previous live streams on YouTube by clicking that Live tab.
Yeah, you can see the live streams where I have more life and energy and haven't been sick for 3 weeks straight. And currently my sinuses are blocking oxygen to my brain as it feels.
Poor Alex, our very own Plague Marine.
I want to know what it's like to feel normal. All I want. It's been so long.
Thanks for stopping by, Electro. It was a pleasure talking to everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the dono there, Mega Reacts. I'm glad we could be amicable here.
I also gotta say, like, I am happy that every once in a while on Table Talk, I get to like sit here and realize that I did absorb more from my business minor than I thought I did. Where I'm like, we're directly talking about something, and I'm like, oh, I remember that lecture. Yeah, I remember us going about that.
You talked a lot more this stream than I was expecting because of your sickness. I think the business side of you just jumped up. You're like, yeah, I know this stuff.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I have some things to say.
I think it's very fascinating. I hate anything revolving around numbers and math, but I really like the reason why businesses make the decisions they do. It's really fascinating, and a lot of people just don't think about it. So I'm like, I'll learn this. This is cool.
Well, you know, I never even took a business course. It's just a lot of research into the industry itself, because
if you just look into it enough, eventually you can see the threads.
Yeah. Well, it's also just, I have a vested interest in tabletop becoming more of an industry, obviously. So it's fascinating for me to look into the numbers and everything. And also it's interesting that once you see into it and you look back outside all the discourse just comes from a lot of people not understanding how industries are run, because the people who absolutely cannot believe. Hey, there it is. Took a second. Thanks for the mega. Or the super chat. Mega. There you go. Thanks for being you. Like, there's... I want to make sure, right, that everyone who joins the community understands that they're being heard. And I want to properly address people as much as possible, but also let you guys know the actual reasons why things are the way they are. People can't understand how people just don't know about, like, the OGL business, right? The OGL business was humongous. And heck, even Charlie talked about it on
Yeah, that's true.
Moist Critical, you know? He wasn't very well informed, and it was a very bone dry video as far as information was. But a lot of people at least heard it. But see, that's the thing, right? Charlie's video is the most exposure most people got about the OGL business. When you watch a bunch of tabletop content, you're going to see tons of videos on it. But when you don't, you're going to see only Moist Critical's content on it. And definitely not a person to go to for any kind of deep conversation on anything other than potentially health stuff, because Charlie actually does have a degree in nutrition sciences and stuff like that. So
I often forget that.
Yeah, he's got a lot of health knowledge, which is kind of cool.
I mean, to be fair, he's ripped. Like, whenever he takes off his shirt, it's always like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's jacked.
But he has the unfortunate anatomy of just someone who can't bulk to save his life.
He can't bulk, and man, he's like, what? Isn't he like 5'6", 5'7"?
I think he's 5'6". Yeah, he's an inch shorter than I am.
He is a good couple under me. All right, good few. I'm like, what? I'm like 5'11", so.
I'm short. I'm 5'7".
I'd be like that.
But I'm also broad, and if I did work out, I would get thick. So, you know, I always got that going for me at the very least. But yeah, so, you know, it's, remember, I'm here to listen to everyone, hear your comments, argue with you on these things, but I'll respect you for it. You know, the only time I don't respect someone, very few times it's happened on stream, has been when someone is very openly being super gatekeepy or just super not considerate of other people. You know, you're gonna act like an asshole, you're gonna be treated like an asshole. But come in good faith, I'll treat you in good faith. And this whole conversation, everything that goes around with WotC and the D&D conversation, there's a lot of very valid criticisms against WotC. I will not defend WotC in any decisions they've made. For sure. But I am willing to acknowledge how much Hasbro and WotC has done for the tabletop community. For their own sake or not, it doesn't matter. What does matter is I get to buy a Lancer book, and that's because during the OGL debacle, a bunch of people checked out other games, one of which was Lancer, in a pretty significant degree. And I'm in the Lancer Discord, and they've been popping off. So
hell yeah. Yeah, I'm still in it. I peek my head in every once in a while.
Yeah, how big is their Discord now? Holy moly. It is almost 14,500 people on their Discord.
That's nuts.
That's insane. Our channel is over 200 now. Woo! We did it. I'm surprised we have 200 people, honestly, in our Discord. Not that we don't see anyone. I'm surprised that so many people wanted to join, honestly. A lot of people, there's been a lot of conversations lately about builds and all that kinds of stuff. It's a fun place, for sure.
Yeah. It's very fun. It's builds and then me jumping in there to try and talk about, like, guys, the Discworld audiobooks are so good.
I saw
right?
that, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're so good. They got, like, really good updates. it helps because a lot of the old audio files were like pretty rough because it was like definite rips of the old like CD recordings from the 90s.
Yeah.
And you can tell, and you're like, this narrator rules. The audio quality fucks me up specifically because I'm so like specific about audio stuff. I've worked with it so much that it's like certain audio styles fuck my ears. It's like I can't deal with it. But like they have like multiple voice actors. Even like they have I forget his name, but he's the guy who played Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. They have
Oh.
him. He does a bunch of voices whenever they're doing footnotes or like specific lore callbacks to Discworld. He's the one that reads the footnotes. And it's really good. He has a great voice. And like every series has a different narrator, like for the sub series, and it's so cool. I'm so excited because also the voice they have for Death is fantastic. It perfectly fits him. So just all of you here, go listen to the Discworld audiobooks and also just read Discworld because it's very good. And it is a beautiful story. A beautiful bunch of stories.
But anyway, that's going to be it for us. Any other stuff you want to leave us off with besides your Discworld love?
Yeah, if any of you are interested in Warhammer 40k, I have a channel related to that. Just look up Glue Boy, look for the same profile picture that's on screen. You'll find me. I put out a video today on recruitment for the Raven Guard and like how they actually function as an organization. What would happen if you joined it, kind of deal. It's a pretty fun video. Go check that out. Go check out the other stuff I made. If you even have like a passing interest in 40k, I'm certain there's something on there you would enjoy. Hopefully I can make it with regularity now that I'm not sick anymore.
He says,
but yeah,
like he's incredibly sick still.
I feel fine. It's just like, I just wish I wasn't congested. It's just like, also I feel slightly like loopy, just like slightly, but that's cold meds more than anything.
And as for me, there was I didn't get a video out yesterday. I'm very sad about that. But it was kind of like chore day / birthday day. I got to actually go out and like eat and do some stuff. So we were kind of just gone for a big portion of the day. And then the day before was also kind of birthday stuff. So I wasn't able to get anything out. I literally couldn't think of a topic for yesterday's video, if I'm being honest. Tomorrow, though, I will have a video coming out. I don't know exactly what it is going to be quite yet. I'm thinking it's going to be a build. I think I'll do a build video, but build videos take so long to make. But I might do it because I didn't do a video on Wednesday, so it'll be a good makeup for that. So we'll see, but something will 100% come out. And as well, I think I might not do it every week, but I think I'll end up doing 2 Lancer videos a week starting next week, just to get on my stream days, since they're not super reliant on homepage viewing, more just research viewing. So I don't need to worry about the streams shadowing any of those kind of videos. So I might do 2 a week until there's some other thing to talk about. I also might do Vampire the Masquerade stuff as we learn about it and talk about why this bloodline is cool. So some kind of fun stuff there. Also, speaking on next Tuesday, we're doing our session 0 for our Vampire 5th edition game. So if you want to see how characters are made, check out what we're doing. Check us out Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But that's going to be it for us. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.